As soon as the unbelievable news spread that a dog had given birth to and was raising a human baby, people from all over gathered to witness the miracle. The dog wrapped itself around the baby, shielding it from the cold. But sensing that warmth alone wasn't enough, it began barking, loud, desperate cries that echoed through the trees. Villagers were in awe, and soon, the story went viral on the internet. Hearing the full details of this incredible event would bring tears to anyone's eyes. The dog's actions toward the baby would shock you, and the child's future would unfold in a way that left people speechless. The villagers came to see the dog as the most important figure in their community, but behind this astonishing event lay a mystery waiting to be unraveled. So, stay with us and watch the story unfold from beginning to end. This tale is not only remarkable but also deeply meaningful and educational. Make sure to share this extraordinary story with your friends and family. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's dive into the unbelievable story of the dog and the baby. It was a misty winter morning, and the entire town was shrouded in fog. Birds remained nestled in their nests, reluctant to wake up, and dew dripped from the trees like raindrops. Amid this eerie silence, a sorrowful howl echoed from a small forest on the town's outskirts. The sound was so mournful that anyone who heard it couldn't help but stop and wonder. A few local farmers, who had set out early to tend to their cattle, froze in place upon hearing the wailing cry. What could be making such a sound on this freezing morning? They whispered among themselves. Curious and cautious, they followed the sound, one by one. When they arrived, they saw a dog sitting on the cold ground near the edge of the forest, howling repeatedly. Its eyes were filled with sorrow. As the farmers hesitated, the dog darted toward them, barking frantically before turning back to the child. Again and again, it ran in circles, urging them to follow. One of the older farmers, understanding the animal's plea, stepped forward cautiously. At first, the townspeople assumed a wild animal had been killed, but as they stepped closer, their words caught in their throats. Lying on the frozen earth, completely naked and shivering from the cold, was a newborn baby. The townspeople gasped in shock. Who could be so cruel? They whispered. Who abandoned this helpless child here? But there were no answers, only silence. The villagers exchanged nervous glances. Who would leave a newborn here? An older woman in the group took off her scarf and wrapped the trembling baby. We can't just walk away, she murmured. A younger man hesitated, then handed her a bottle of goat's milk from his satchel. At least let's keep it warm until we decide what to do, he said. But the dog did not move. It stayed. As if understanding that leaving the child behind was wrong, the dog gazed at the infant with gentle eyes. Then, carefully, it took the baby into its mouth and lifted it from the cold ground. Some villagers who remained at a distance watched with growing concern. What if the dog harms the baby? They murmured. But what happened next shocked them. Instead of attacking the child, the dog carried the baby to a safer, warmer spot. Then, it curled up around the infant, wrapping it in its body heat. The townspeople stood frozen. That morning became one of the strangest in the town's history. No one knew what would happen to the child, but the motherly instinct of the dog, the way it cried and protected the infant, touched everyone's hearts. The sight of the dog caring for the baby spread quickly. Whispers turned into rumors, and soon, from one side of town to the other, people spoke of the miraculous event. Crowds began to gather near the forest, eager to witness the scene for themselves. From a distance, they saw the dog sitting attentively beside the baby, watching over it with extreme care. Its large eyes seemed to express endless love. The villagers murmured among themselves. This is unlike anything we've ever seen. Instead of harming the baby, the dog is protecting it. But despite their astonishment, none of them dared to pick up the baby. They were afraid. What if taking the child was a curse? What if society judged them for accepting a child abandoned under such mysterious circumstances? Among the onlookers was a woman named Nora. She was a kind and compassionate person, admired for her beauty and generosity. But despite being married for 5 years, she had never been able to conceive a child. The pain of being childless weighed heavily on her heart. When Nora heard about the abandoned baby, she didn't hesitate. She rushed to the forest. Upon arrival, she was stunned. There, curled around the infant, the dog was keeping the baby warm with its own body. Tears filled her eyes. "Oh, God," she whispered. "How can an animal show such kindness when humans cannot?" Nora took a cautious step forward. Instantly, the dog's body tensed, its deep growl warning her to stay away. She paused, lowering herself to the ground. "I'm not here to harm you," she whispered, placing a piece of bread within the dog's reach. The animal sniffed the offering but kept its watchful eyes on her. Minutes passed, then, as if sensing her sincerity, the dog stepped aside, just enough for Nora to gently lift the baby into her arms. "You are mine now," she whispered. "I will raise you as my own." Nora brought the baby home and told her husband, Daniel, everything. At first, he was skeptical. But after hearing her story and seeing the child, his heart softened. "If fate brought this child to us, there must be a reason," Daniel said. "We will raise him as our own." Nora and Daniel took full responsibility for the baby, providing him with clothing, food, and a warm home. And as for the dog, they made sure it had a place in their home, too. The child, whom they named Theo, slowly began his new life. The dog remained by his side, always watching over him. It was more than just a pet, it was his guardian. As Theo grew, so did his bond with the dog. When he cried, the dog called for Nora. When he slept, the dog lay beside him, ensuring he was safe. One day, when Theo took his first steps, the dog stood beside him, ready to catch him if he fell. And when Theo finally learned to run, the dog followed close behind, always protecting him. The villagers watched in amazement. "This is no ordinary animal," they whispered. "This dog is his true guardian." As time passed, Theo grew into a happy child, surrounded by love. But the town still whispered about his origins. Who left him in the forest, they wondered. Why did the dog protect him? Some believed it was fate. Others thought it was divine intervention. But one thing was certain, no force in the world could break the love between Theo and his loyal guardian. This story teaches us that love and protection can come from the most unexpected places. A family isn't just about blood, it's about who stands by you, protects you, and loves you unconditionally. And sometimes, the most loyal family member has 4 legs and a heart full of love. As Nora watched the heartwarming scene before her, tears welled up in her eyes. She whispered to herself, "Oh, God, your creations are truly amazing. If an animal can show such kindness, why can't humans?" Nora hesitated, her heart pounding. She crouched low, making herself smaller, less threatening. "Hey there," she murmured, her voice soft but steady. The dog's ears twitched, but its stance remained firm, muscles tense with silent warning. Slowly, she removed her scarf and placed it near the child, hoping her scent would reassure the animal. The dog sniffed it cautiously, its growl fading into a low whimper. Encouraged, Nora extended her hand, not toward the baby, but toward the dog. It flinched, uncertain, but didn't move away. Only then did she dare to reach for the child, cradling the tiny, trembling body in her arms. The dog, at first, remained alert, but gradually, as it sensed no danger, it calmed down. Taking this opportunity, Nora gently picked up the baby and held it close to her chest. A wave of warmth and love flooded her heart as she whispered, "From this moment on, you are my child. I will raise you as my own." Nora carried the baby back home and told her husband, Daniel, everything. At first, Daniel was skeptical. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, worry etched on his face. "We don't know where this child came from. But as he listened to Nora's heartfelt words, his expression softened. "If fate has brought this child to us," he finally said, "then surely, there is a greater purpose behind it. We will raise him as our own." And so, Nora and Daniel took full responsibility for the child. They provided him with warm clothing, food, and everything he needed to grow up healthy. But they didn't forget the dog either. In one corner of their home, they set up a small space just for the dog, a shelter, a bed, and plenty of food. After all, the dog had protected the baby when no one else would. From that moment on, the baby, whom they named Theo, began his new life. And the dog, which had once been his rescuer, became his lifelong guardian. Despite the warmth and love inside their home, the outside world continued to talk. People in town couldn't stop whispering. Who abandoned this child? Is this a bad omen? Why is the dog so protective of him? Some even speculated that if a dog could care for him, perhaps divine mercy was watching over him. Daniel ignored the gossip. He firmly believed, if this child was meant to survive, then there must be a higher purpose behind it. Meanwhile, the dog never left Theo's side. At night, it lay beside him, keeping him warm. If Theo cried, the dog would bark loudly, calling for Nora. As the days passed, Theo grew, and so did his bond with his loyal guardian. The moment Theo took his first steps, the dog was right there, walking beside him, ensuring he wouldn't fall. As he learned to run, the dog would always be close, keeping him safe. Villagers watched in amazement. What kind of relationship is this, they wondered. This dog is more than just a pet, it's his true protector. Nora and Daniel spared no effort in providing Theo with the best life possible. Whenever they traveled to the city, they brought back delicious food, clothes, and toys for him. Their home was filled with happiness and laughter. But peaceful times never last forever. One day, the local town leader heard about the unusual story and decided to visit their home. "Are you sure you can keep this child?" he asked sternly. What if, one day, his real origins cause problems? Daniel remained calm. "We may not know where he came from," he admitted, "but we know that he is our responsibility now. We will care for him no matter what. We will not change our decision because of rumors." After the leader left, Nora turned to Daniel, concern in her eyes. "Do you think his true identity could cause problems for us in the future?" she asked. Daniel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "If fate has given us this responsibility, then it will also guide us to the right path." The dog, as if sensing their conversation, lay quietly by Theo's feet, as loyal as ever. One day, while Theo was playing outside, a venomous snake slithered toward him, ready to strike. Before anyone could react, the dog leaped forward, barking fiercely and lunging at the snake. In one swift motion, it scared the snake away, saving Theo's life. Nora and Daniel witnessed the event and were overwhelmed with gratitude. "Without this dog," Nora whispered, tears in her eyes, "we could have lost him today." It was at that moment they truly realized, this dog was not just a guardian. It was Theo's guardian angel. Despite the town's continued whispers, Theo grew up happily, always protected by his loyal companion. He never felt alone. The dog was always by his side, when he learned to walk, when he played outside, and even when he started school. Each morning, the dog would accompany him to school. And every afternoon, it would be waiting outside to walk him home. The sight became well known in town. "I have never seen such devotion," an elderly villager said. "It's as if the dog sees him as its own child." Others nodded in agreement. This relationship teaches us something profound. One morning, while Theo was playing in the front yard, a stranger passed by. The man stopped suddenly, staring at Theo. His brows furrowed in confusion. "This child. He looks familiar," the man murmured. He stepped closer and asked, "Where did this boy come from?" Nora, remaining calm, replied, we don't know his origins. But to us, he is a gift, and we love him as our own." The man said nothing and walked away. But his presence left an uneasy feeling in Nora's heart. As Theo continued to grow, so did the dog's devotion. People in town still questioned their unusual bond. "A child needs human parents, not a dog," some said. "Is it right for a dog to act like a parent?" But Nora and Daniel knew the truth. Family isn't just about blood, they believed. It's about love, protection, and unwavering loyalty. Even Theo's teacher at school once asked, "How did you develop such a strong bond with this dog?" Theo smiled and replied, "Because love isn't just something humans give. This dog has taught me kindness, courage, and what it means to truly care for someone." The teacher fell silent, moved by his words. As time passed, the people in town began to see things differently. They saw how the dog had saved Theo's life more than once. They saw how, despite not being related by blood, Theo and the dog shared an unbreakable bond. And gradually, the town's attitude changed. They began to understand, love knows no boundaries. It was a lesson they never expected to learn, from a boy and his dog. One evening, as Nora and Daniel sat in their living room, a thought weighed heavily on their minds. What if one day someone comes looking for Theo? Daniel asked. What if his real origins become an issue? Nora took a deep breath. I don't have all the answers, she admitted, but I do know this, he was given to us as a blessing. And I will raise him with love, trusting that fate has placed him in our care for a reason. That night, as they slept, an event unfolded that would forever change their lives. In the dead of night, Daniel woke to an unusual sound coming from Theo's room. His heart pounded as he got up to check. Peering through the dim light, he froze. A large wild animal was attempting to break into the house through an open window. But standing between the creature and the child was the dog. Its fur bristled, teeth bared, eyes locked on the intruder. It growled with a ferocity Daniel had never seen before. Without hesitation, the dog lunged forward, barking fiercely until the animal retreated into the darkness. Daniel stood in awe. This wasn't just a pet. This was Theo's protector, his guardian. When Nora awoke to hear what had happened, she felt a deep, unshakable certainty. This dog isn't just watching over Theo, she whispered. It was meant to be in his life. From that night on, there was no doubt, this wasn't a typical bond. This was something built on love, trust, and unwavering loyalty. As time passed, the town grew more curious about the unusual trio, a man, a woman, a child, and his ever-watchful dog. During the town's annual festival, people couldn't help but steal glances at them. The dog, usually calm and quiet, remained alert, sensing the stares and whispers, never taking its eyes off Theo. But Nora and Daniel no longer cared what people thought. They shared a knowing look, silently reaffirming their belief, no matter what others say, our love for Theo, and the dog's love for him, is pure and unshakable. Even after the festival ended, the town's curiosity only grew stronger. Some approached Nora and Daniel with questions. Where did the child come from? Why is the dog so attached to him? But the couple remained firm in their decision. This is our family, they simply said. That's all that matters. The whispers continued, but as Theo grew older, something remarkable happened. With each passing year, Theo and the dog became inseparable. Wherever Theo went, the dog followed. When he took his first steps, the dog was there to steady him. When he ran, the dog ran beside him, ensuring he was never too far. They're a team, the townspeople would say in amazement. A family in their own right. No matter what the world thought, Nora and Daniel knew the truth. They had been given a gift, a child to love and raise, and a guardian sent to protect him. And nothing could change that. One day, a man named Daryl, known for his strong personality and traditional views, confronted Nora directly. "That dog doesn't belong in your family," he said, crossing his arms. "A child needs human parents. I can't accept this." Nora remained calm. "This is our choice," she said firmly. "This dog is part of our lives, and nothing will change that." Daniel stepped in. "Tell me, Daryl," he said. "How can you look at a creature that has done nothing but protect, love, and care for a child, and call it unworthy?" Daryl, caught off guard, had no response. He simply turned and left. But his words spread quickly, and soon, the town was divided. Some supported Nora and Daniel. Others thought it was unnatural. But despite the pressure, they refused to waver. They knew what truly mattered: love, loyalty, and family. As Theo started school, he faced a different kind of challenge. Some of his classmates teased him. "Your dog looks like it raised you," one boy sneered. "Did your mom even teach you anything?" The word stung. Theo lowered his head, feeling hurt. But the dog, as if sensing his pain, stood beside him, pressing its body close. It was as if it were saying, "Don't let them get to you. I'm here." Theo looked down into the dog's deep, understanding eyes and felt something inside him strengthen. One day, as they sat together under the shade of a tree, Theo whispered, "You are the most important thing in my life. You've always been there for me." The dog stared at him for a long moment, then let out a single, deep bark. It wasn't just a sound. It was an expression of love. A passing villager witnessed the moment and shook his head in amazement. "I never thought an animal could be so human," he muttered. But to Theo, it was simple. This dog was family. No matter what society thought, Theo knew one truth: nothing could break the bond they had built. His parents had taught him that love wasn't about appearances or traditions. It was about kindness, devotion, and the people, or creatures, who stood by you no matter what. As he grew older, he spoke often about his relationship with the dog, sharing stories at school and at home. Some continued to question it. But to Theo, there was nothing to question. "This is my family," he would say. "And I wouldn't change it for anything." For Theo, the dog had become an irreplaceable part of his life. He couldn't imagine a world without his loyal companion. But not everyone in town shared his sentiment. Some still questioned the nature of their bond. "Is it really right to love a dog the same way one would love a child?" they asked. "A child needs human parents, not an animal." But Nora and Daniel never doubted their choices. They knew their love for Theo, and the love the dog showed him, wasn't something that could be measured by societal norms. Their family had grown beyond traditional expectations, embracing love, compassion, and kindness that transcended human limitations. One day, the town's mayor called for a public gathering. Standing before the villagers, he spoke with hesitation. "We teach our children about love and empathy," he said. "But when we see this kind of love between a boy and an animal, we begin to question everything we thought we knew." A discussion erupted among the villagers. Some believed the bond between Theo and the dog was unnatural, while others saw it as a beautiful example of unconditional love. As the debate continued, Daniel and Nora finally stepped forward. "We often say that kindness and compassion are what make us human," Daniel said. "But if we see those same qualities in an animal, does that not mean that all living beings are special in their own way?" The crowd fell silent, pondering his words. Meanwhile, Theo had been working on a special school project, one that would soon challenge the entire town's perspective. He titled his essay, "What Every Child Needs Most." In it, he wrote, "The most important things a child needs are love, care, and kindness. Even animals, just like humans, are capable of showing these things. This dog, who was once just a stray, has become my greatest teacher. He has taught me love, bravery, and what it means to care for someone unconditionally." When Theo read his words aloud, the room grew quiet. Some lowered their heads in reflection, realizing the truth in his message. Society often placed limits on love, but here, before them, was proof that love had no limits. As Theo continued to grow, his bond with the dog deepened. No matter where he went, the dog followed. When he walked home from school, the dog was right beside him. When he played in the yard, the dog kept watch. It was a level of loyalty and responsibility that no one had expected from an animal. Who would have thought a dog could love like this? Villagers whispered among themselves. The connection between Theo and his guardian only grew stronger, becoming something no one could deny. One afternoon, Theo's teacher, Mr. Jennings, called him aside. "Theo," he asked curiously, "how did you form such a strong bond with this dog?" Theo smiled and replied, "He was sent to me as a blessing. He taught me that love and kindness can come from anyone, even from those we least expect." Mr. Jennings paused, considering Theo's words. He had spent years teaching children about empathy and compassion, yet it was a young boy and his dog who had taught the town the most valuable lesson of all. Over the next few weeks, something changed in the town. The villagers began to see the dog differently. At first, it was just subtle shifts, people no longer staring in judgment, fewer whispers behind Theo's back. Then, the change became more profound. People started treating animals with more kindness. Some who had once doubted Theo's relationship with his dog began to rethink their own views on love, responsibility, and what it meant to be a family. The town hadn't changed overnight. But it had begun to see the world in a new light. Over time, the villagers realized something they had overlooked before. Love wasn't just for humans. It wasn't confined by species, traditions, or expectations. They began to understand that love, kindness, and empathy were core human values, not just toward each other, but toward all living beings. And it had taken a boy and his dog to show them that.